Okay, welcome everyone. Today, this event, we had the second most signups of any of the events we've been holding for the beginning track meetup in HP. So I want to thank you all for being here. Do I need to use a microphone? In the back, can you hear me? Or are you staring? They're just sitting there. I don't think they can hear me. Huh? So a couple of notes. My name is Rick Evans. I'm the co-organizer of this meetup. The other co-organizers are away. They're in Vegas, and so we can't ask them what they do when they come back. Let's see. So this is the beginning track of the OpenStack meetup for the South San Francisco Bay Area. Let's see, a couple things. Does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make before we begin? Short announcements. I have a request. I have no idea what we're going to talk about at the next meetup. So if you all could go to the sign-up page in the chat room and just make some suggestions, or if you have suggestions tonight, come tell me them, and then we'll take a vote, or I'll just decide, or Lisa will decide. Or, we'll just come up with something in the next couple of weeks and have a topic for July 2nd, I think, is right before the holiday break. The advanced track is 2 weeks from today in the same location, and I believe we're talking about Meetup. And with that, I'll introduce our speaker. We have John Benson from HashiCorp. HashiCorp was famously is the creators and stewards of Vagrant, which John will now describe. And we can describe how to use Vagrant to deploy DevStack, OpenStack DevStack, which we talked about in the April 2nd meeting. The rest of you. All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to join in later on.
Hello, everyone. You guys hear me? A little bit taller microphone. I'll try my best. All right, my name is John. I'm here to talk about Vagrant, kind of a 101 presentation. Vagrant, the virtual development environment. You can find me on Twitter at jm_Benson, or feel free to email me at john@hashicorp.com. So Vagrant is a part of the HashiCorp stack. It is one of the open source projects. It's been around for quite a while, the longest tool. Who's heard of HashiCorp here? Few people, okay. So Vagrant is probably one of the most well-known tools. So there's a lot more that offer, but that would be one you might have heard of that's been around the longest. So, as I said, HashiCorp has a suite of tools. We got started on the left, Vagrant, which is the first one, Packer, Serve, Console, Terraform, and we actually just released another one that didn't make the slide yet, is Vault. And each of these tools solve a different piece of the application deployment puzzle. We have a commercial product called Atlas, which kind of ties together all of these different pieces and makes it a really easy, usable infrastructure management type tool. What our goal is to have operators be able to deploy and manage immutable, versionable, repeatable, and auditable infrastructure. And so each of these different tools kind of knocks out a different piece of that pipeline that we feel is the best way to try and manage your whatever type of infrastructure you have. All of them are open source and free to use and free to contribute to. And there's a huge community around Vagrant, and each of the newer products are starting to grow more and more, which makes each of the projects better, and everyone just benefits from it. So the stronger that gets, the better it is. So happy to be here talking and trying to get some more people excited about the project. So what we're here today to talk about is Vagrant and how it can help you guys in your development environment. So first we'll talk about why Vagrant is a tool that you guys can utilize, what the benefits are, and then how you can use that to deploy DevStack pretty easily, as well as any other environment you might want to develop it. Vagrant is completely open source, as I mentioned before. It's written in Ruby. There's pieces of it that are ready to go. All of our other open source projects are all ready to go. It was just built quite a while ago and didn't make the go set of it. There's a lot of plugins as well that are written in other languages and supported by the community. So we'll talk about plugins in a bit. History. Vagrant's been around for quite a while. It's the longest tool. It started in 2010. I think it's around 5 years old now. It was created by Mitchell. Mitchell Hashimoto, it's HashiCorp. So he was the creator of it, but it's largely been maintained and updated and written into by the community. And so the first commit, was 5 years ago. One of the most popular open source projects on GitHub with over 7,000 commits. Pretty incredible. There's a significant number of contributors. Just the number of commits by the project. Here we have the number of commits by each of the different contributors. So obviously Mitchell did a lot of the work, but a lot of these other people have contributed quite a bit. It's pretty incredible. 588 total that have contributed to the past 5 years. With that, what makes it really popular is a lot of the stars and a lot of the forks that people have used. Across the board, it's been used in enterprise, it's been used in startups, it's been used in the government sector, education. There's a lot of different businesses all throughout the world that use it, rely on it, and depend on it to have a reliable dev environment that's really easy to use. Talk about some of those cases. These are some of the companies, some notable ones that discuss BBC, Mozilla, like I said, companies all throughout the world that some of them are pretty big and they enjoy using it. So why use Vagrant? It really boils down to cost-benefit analysis. We can talk about some of those benefits now. As far as requirements of what's needed to get started using Vagrant, what we kind of pride ourselves in is the ease of use, the user experience. Most tooling that you use is pretty complicated, solves hard problems, and so because of that, it requires a decent understanding of whatever you're doing. With Vagrant, we try to mask a lot of that. So it makes being a designer come into an environment where you want to be able to contribute, but not have to understand Python, not have to understand Ruby, not have to understand how to spin up a VirtualBox machine. Whatever you have to do, they just want to design what that's what they're good at. So we want to create an environment where it's one command where they can do that. With that, there's three things you need to get started. First one being a computer. That's your computer development. Second one being an internet connection. Third and most importantly, a beverage. Halfway there. All right. And then also optionally is the internet connection. And that once you download the Vagrant box, then you don't necessarily need an internet connection past that. You've already done all your provisioning, configuring, and it stores that. We'll talk about that in a second. Another highlight of it is a low barrier to entry, very easy to use. One of the biggest benefits which operators will find most important is the dev prosperity.
Okay, this.
All right, we're back. All right, so dev prod parity. This is important. Application engineers working off of a similar environment to production is pretty critical. It used to be one of those things where you would have a laptop or a desktop or whatever, and you take 2 weeks to configure your environment when you start a new job. The onboarding process is a headache. And as you start to develop, you get into the situation where it works on my machine, but it doesn't work on yours. Push it in, whatever. And so the issue that creates is that with you using an environment that is very specific to you and your laptop, you end up with a situation where you might update a package on your computer, and that's not updated in production. And all of a sudden you're developing, and everything looks good on my computer, ship it, all of a sudden we're down. Who gets that call at 3 a.m.? The operators. So what we're trying to prevent is that difference in environments. The closer we can get to bridge that gap of what's development, what's production, the better, the more uptime we're going to have, the less risk we have in pushing code. You just put yourself in an all-around better situation by doing that. Before it was tough to do that. You want to have to learn how to configure a VirtualBox or configure VMware to spin that up. But what Vagrant does is mask that. It masks a lot of the complexities of doing that, and it does it with multiple providers. So if you get ahead of myself, but what you can do is with all the different providers that are out there, you can start running a virtual machine. But then that's not big enough because you're running off of your puny laptop. And so you beef it up to an AWS instance that you're running. And you can configure that to be however big you want. Or you can get the RAM or whatever you need to run your development environment. You can use it with any of the providers. So it's not 100% parity, but it gets there. It gets you to 95%, 98%. The closer that when you're configuring your environments from production to dev, the better you're going to get. So it's kind of up to you as to how close you configure those environments.
Question.
Yep.
Vagrant supported with KVM.
Say that again?
Can I use it to like automate KV on my word manager?
KVM and what?
Word manager. Like virtual
Can you repeat the question? It's Birdman.
Birdman.
Instead of using VirtualBox, use KVM.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah, there is a plugin for that. For KVM.
Vagrant can deploy KVM.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if it deploys KVM, but it can work with it.
Yeah. So a lot of the concepts behind Vagrant and that working with a bunch of different providers, and if there wasn't anything specific to your environment, those plugins for it. So very adaptable. So this kind of goes into the failure gap that you're closing, in that your environments are very similar. No more works on my machine. And your dev and development and production environments are close to the same. Bridge that gap. So the next thing is that it's very easy. Super simple to use. Vagrant prides itself on the ability for anybody to pick it up and use it. And so with that, there's basically 2 steps to get started. That's downloading Vagrant, which you can do on the website vagrantup.com, and then the simple command vagrantup. And what vagrantup does is it spins up your, however you configure that Vagrant file, it spins up that virtual machine. You have a working environment on it. Does it headless, so you don't even know there's a VM. You're not even really aware of what's going on. So what that Vagrant file is, text-based description of the virtual machine. You let the file know, you specify whatever the base box is going to be, whatever network settings that you want to have, how you forward the ports, how that VM is going to work with your host machine, and then also any provisioning that you want to use. So there are provisioners that are built in, such as Ansible, Chef, and any other ones that you want to use while you're provisioning that you already use in production. It's going to work with Vagrant so that you can have those the same scripts that you use to bring up your prod machines you're using to bring up your dev machine. So with that, there are quite a few different providers. AWS, GCE, there's a plugin for, and anything else you can imagine, either it's out there or it's specific to you, build it with a plugin. There's a lot that are already supported by the community, which has been great, and that it's been around so long. People have found a bunch of different use cases, and then they rally around those use cases and just develop a provider for it. So, yeah, working with different VMs is kind of painful. Working with VirtualBox is painful. So, hiding and masking that is very helpful for a lot of people, especially someone who's not tech savvy, or maybe they just don't want to know or care to know how to do that. Yeah. Some of the different plugins. Yeah, so like the Google Compute plugin is advantageous if you want to, kind of like the AWS one, bring up environments that you don't necessarily want running on your local environment. So it has a lot beefier system that can manage whatever environment you're trying to run. You don't have to really run that. Off the top of my head, I don't know a ton of other plugins, but you can check out some of the community-driven plugins to meet whatever needs. Another feature of Vagrant is Vagrant Share. So with your development environment, there's many times that you want to work with your product manager, whoever it might be, show them your progress, so you know you're tracking through whatever milestone you are. Traditionally, you'd have to walk your laptop over to the person and say, all right, here it is. With Vagrant Share, you have the option to just share their environment through a URL. You can send them a link that via the internet, they could be anywhere in the world, allows them to see exactly what you are seeing on your machine. You can also SSH into your environment if you're programming someone's in a different continent. It's very easy to use and work off of the same environment, and then also share. So with that easiness, it's one command Vagrant now. Let's bring up that machine with whatever provider you specify, and depending on the box, the base box that you're working off of, some of them are gigabytes and they take a while to download. Some of them are small and it's pretty quick, but with that, you have those hosted boxes on wherever they might be stored on Atlas, what have you. Bring those down, and depending on how they're configured, they can already have everything you need on it. There's no provision or steps involved. So it all depends on what DevOps engineer puts that together, but they can make it a really simple experience for you by doing that, where it's just one command and you don't have to know what's going on. Another thing that Vagrant and HashiCorp prides itself in is documentation. So with the ease of use, there's obviously a lot going on behind it. We want you to be able to figure that. And so with the Vagrant file, it's pretty simple, but there's a lot of different pieces to it that you can configure yourself to have your environment work exactly the way you want it. So at a high level, it's super easy, but you can get down into the nitty gritty and figure it however you want to do it. So this is we got one of the pages coming up. It's all marked down in HTML. It's pretty formatted in a way that it's easy to use and find everything. Any documentation or questions I have, it's generally going to the documentation because it's so well kept. It's open source. It's in a repository as well. So anyone that wants to update it, that's a great way to get involved in an open source project. Through the documentation. So because there's new questions that's asked by the community, whenever they're answered, they can get updated in the documentation so no one else has that question. It can all be found online. The last piece is pluggable, excuse me. So with that, we're talking about the different plugins that you can use. Ansible was one that was a community-driven plugin, and it got so much attention that they just built it into the core product. And it's like that with Chef as a provisioner and multiple other types of plugins that it just made sense to bring it into that core product. It's as simple as Vagrant plugin install. You have whatever plugin you might need. So this is what plugins take, which are all very well documented. The last piece is that Vagrant is platform agnostic. And so with that, whether you're running Mac, PC, Linux, Ubuntu, or whatever it may be, Vagrant will work with all of that. So you don't have to worry about whatever specific environment you have. It's just going to work. And with that, another powerful part of Vagrant is that if you're a designer and you are trying to test your new feature or set of changes across Internet Explorer, let's say, but you're working on a Mac, you don't want to have a Windows PC sitting around that you run over to every time that you have a feature to update. If you have two people working on that, then the second one is going to be waiting to use that too. And every time it's just a waste of your time and something's time. And so what you can do is just spin up a specific Vagrant environment with that Windows GUI. Actually have it come up with the GUI, and then that's using the shared folders, which are synced to your local laptop. So any change you make is then in that virtual environment that you can hop into on your own PC and see whatever changes just by refreshing the page. So that's another powerful piece of it in how you want to test across different environments. You want to be able to make sure that whatever changes you make doesn't show up something on IE that you had no idea that it was going to do. So throughout all of them, it just works. So that brings us to our demo. That was kind of an overall idea of what Vagrant is. And so now more specifically, we want to talk about DevStack and how you can use Vagrant to pretty quickly spin up a DevStack environment and have that OpenStack dashboard in which you can make whatever changes. So I'm not an expert by any means in that technology, so Rick is going to be helping me out with this portion of it. But the reason that can be powerful is traditionally installing DevStack, there's quite a bit of different install work you have to do. And so if you can mask that by just putting it in the Vagrant file that provisions it in a way where it downloads all the GitHub repositories you need, installs all the plugins, and all you do is Vagrant up, and all of a sudden you have a DevStack environment already running. That's pretty powerful, and that you save yourself a lot of time. You save people who are maybe beginners coming into the environment and want to learn trying to figure out how to set it up and then just throwing it away. You have an easily repeatable environment. It allows for a lot better experience with DevStack. So here. Okay. So, all right. So what we did, Alvaro, one of the support people at Hashi actually put together this repository DevStack environment that he's spun up with Vagrant. And so all it is the Vagrant up command, and you have the environment. And then with that, he just had to show that it worked, we pull a Docker container, spin up the Nginx web server in that container, just to show that. So with that, very well. Okay, so. You want to see a little bit better?
Okay, everybody?
Yeah.
The problem is when we move the table, we get feedback on the
Okay, I can see here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is quick suspend this environment. The difference are with Vagrant, you obviously don't want to have that virtual machine running all the time. It's using your own resources. So when you spin it up, it's actually spinning up the VM and whatever provider you're using. You want to tear that down eventually. You don't necessarily want to lose your state. So if it took a while to Vagrant up and you had to download that box and then provision whatever, it might have taken a half an hour. It could have taken an hour depending on how big it was. So you don't necessarily want to use that. There's a couple commands that you can use to bring it down. One is suspend, which still uses disk space and that saves the exact state, but you can bring it up much quicker. So I just suspended it. I can do Vagrant up now, and it's going to come up within seconds. Had I done Vagrant halt, it would have actually shut down the machine. It would have taken a little bit longer to boot back up, but two different ways that you can kind of leave your environment around. The last one is Vagrant destroy, which actually just wipes away everything. So if you just want all of your space back, Vagrant destroy and it's gone. Only downfall is you have to wait again for that to come back up. For the sake of your time and mine, I already Vagrant up to where it holds the box and provision. So we won't do the half-hour wait on that one unless you guys. So, all right, so it came back up. You can see here. And so
instructions on the Meetup page. The instructions for getting set up are right here. So there's the first instruction says install VirtualBox today. And then it talks about pretty much everything. I've gone through this several times. Fairly straightforward instructions.
If you click on those links, you will actually do those things, or
It won't do them. It'll take you to the right page. So if you click VirtualBox, it takes you to the VirtualBox page, where you then download, follow their instructions to install. And the Vagrant goes to the Vagrant page where it has instructions to install.
okay,
We didn't duplicate the installation instructions.
okay.
But other than that, pretty much we're just going to follow along. This demo is going to follow along for you. So you can go home and look for this GitHub page and follow. Yeah. We don't have this. We're using VirtualBox. VirtualBox and KVM are competing products.
Yeah, but you said.
I said I can use KVM. I can say show some instructions. You have to do it. Don't know how to do KVM yet. We're not prepared to show it. We didn't rehearse that.
Yep.
So for KVM, you have to download Vagrant, and after that you have to there is a plugin that you have to install. And the problem with KVM that you have always there is another plugin that you it's better to use VirtualBox, you know. The advantage of KVM for nested
No, okay, so this is the question I wanted to ask. Okay, I actually tried with VirtualBox.
Yeah.
But one thing what I found is that the guest which is created in VirtualBox doesn't have the CPU virtual.
That's why the nested thing.
So that's why I need KVM.
Yeah, KVM, there is login. If you go under login in the page for the header, you can use VMware. Everything is open source. VMware, you have to pay like for it. That's the only thing that you have to pay for. But every other thing, you can even spend $1 with VMware. Okay. There is everything. The problem with it, you have to download another plugin that I forget what the name Mutate, you know, and you have to convert the image to be working with KVM. That's it.
Well, we've had DevStack running on VirtualBox, so
Yeah.
the issue of having virtualization type implementation, the box, it's not a problem.
It does work.
There must be some specific configuration of VirtualBox maybe or something.
I don't know how to use it. We're just downloading it.
Right. So you just have to be sure that that is set properly.
But the new processes are already.
So, with that, we have our general setup, which is just the cloning of the repository, which brings down any provisioning steps you need as well. So when you do that Vagrant up step, there's these two pieces that provision. So that's what we talked about. These are just shell scripts.
Can you make it bigger?
Yeah, I'm sorry. And so what that'll do is there's other scripts in that repository that, so this is a lot of the installation that happens is all happening within these different scripts there. So that's what happens when you're Vagrant up, it's running that provision. You don't have to provision more than once unless you run Vagrant provision. Once you do it the first time, that sticks around. You have to wait another half hour, however long it takes. So with that, we already Vagrant up. And so it says we have a machine booted and ready. So if I go over to here, board.
What machine is that local host on? The same one that your Vagrant is running on?
The DevStack?
The local host address you typed up there. Where are you typing that from? The same place you typed Vagrant up?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yep, this is, so there's my last command is Vagrant up.
Everything's on your laptop.
Yep, everything's local here.
At this point, we don't need any network.
Okay, but it's local as opposed to inside a virtual box.
Right, so,
Yeah.
so he's now in the laptop versus inside.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll show you in a second what we'll do. We'll SSH into there. But right now, this terminal right now is just my local machine. If I go into my browser under that local host, I can log in, admin and password. So I previously created a demo project and instances. We'll spin up a new instance to show how it interacts. So there's two different instances we have here that can be configured and however you want to do it within that Vagrant terminal. So what I'll do now is I'll Vagrant SSH in. And so whether you're using Windows or then it would use WinRM, but it just SSHs in, so whether it's not local or whatever it might be, it all works the same, where it's trying to go into that environment via the same methods. And so we're actually in the virtual machine right now. Look here, this is the guy that's running in VirtualBox. And so there's different steps that we were following I ran a lot of the preliminary ones where it's just, which you guys can follow along the repository as you do it yourself, and setting up security groups, pulling the Docker image, and then spinning up the Docker container using plans in Nova. So if I go back in here, that'd be an page here. Source my environment.
I'm taking demo user environment.
So those are my two different machines that are instances that I saw here. These are the IPs that can be reached at. So what I spun up was where what that Docker image was just something I pulled from someone else's repository, basically as a sanity check that what you're running actually works. So this is that localhost 883, and I refresh. It wasn't working before when Vagrant was suspended. Now that it's up, I have my working web server, so I can go in and configure that however I want. But this is just kind of one of those sanity checks to say, okay, I actually brought up a new image using DevStack, and I can manage it from there. So I'll talk a bit more about that because you're wrong. So what the other thing we can do is spin up that new instance. So find the command here.
How long does it take to go from initial 0 to DevStack?
So
Vagrant SSH.
it depends on your internet connection. So it does download a lot of packages and install a lot of things. The provisioning takes a bit. It's about a half hour. Depending, 45 minutes. It could be a different experience with the product. But you can just let it go, make some coffee, and then it'll be close to done. By the time you're done, SSH and you can start playing around. And after that, you're fine. You just suspend it, you still have your environment for as long until someone updates it or you update whatever the repo is. So what I did was I booted two different instances using Nova, and so what I'll do is I'll just boot the third one just so we can verify that it works here.
Let's go to the instances page.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah.
It says there's two instances now. He's going to create a new instance. Every understand what an instance is? That's a virtual machine that OpenStack is. We use the command line to do this.
So I already have one named test 0 and test 1, so we can do test 2.
These are just standard OpenStack commands.
So shows that it's building it. Now we have a third one that pops up, test 2.
So if your laptop were on the real internet, would somebody be able to connect to one of these virtual machines? Or
Maybe
would
they
they-
can configure that to make it work.
Yeah,
The routing is a little bit tricky because this is a virtual machine within inside a virtual machine.
yeah,
So we have to tunnel. I don't know how to do that.
because I'm already used to it works in DevStack, why can't I make it work in the real thing problem? And now you've added a layer of indirection.
Actually, not so much. We're still just using DevStack. All Vagrant's done is automated installation of DevStack.
Okay,
So we haven't added that extra layer.
okay,
But it's still, it's difficult from DevStack to get the web server out to the real internet.
yeah,
In general, it's not really designed for that. DevStack is designed to be just used as a development environment by one person.
yeah,
OpenStack, and this is something we talked about the other day, 2 months ago. OpenStack is designed to be run in a data center.
yeah,
And cloud is supposed to be in a data center. So DevStack is kind of an anomaly, kind of an oxymoron. So the idea of publishing, it's not a significant use case to publish from DevStack to the outside world. Not really what DevStack's designed to do.
yeah, because that means it's hard to actually develop on it. But, yeah,
They
okay,
develop on it, again, it's meant to be run on one laptop, so.
yeah,
And that's easy to develop on, because I can, from the host machine, talk to the first machine. And that's significant, that's good for development.
Yeah, actually, it can be done. If you use, you have to use bridge to network, bridge NAC. If you use NAC, you cannot.
Yeah, in the Vagrant cloud, you can configure all that.
Yeah, if you use a NAC network, you can reach only from inside to outside. You cannot reach from outside to inside. If you want to run a web server, you need reach. You want someone from outside to reach that server. So you need to configure a bridge to network inside your virtual box.
And that can be put inside the Vagrant cloud, so it's part of this environment if you wanted to.
oh, that's helpful then, thanks.
So, as mentioned previously, there's a lot of documentation in that, a lot of networking type questions that you can peruse the documentation, and a lot of that is just specific configuration that you can do. And if there's people who want to just put a repository out there that starts figuring out the different environments that you guys want to set up, or however you want the networking configuration, it's just one person figuring it out. So back to here.
So, let's go to so if you, when you set, I thought we were going to go through the instructions, so.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so.
We'll start with it. Okay.
Actually, before you go to the neutron, let's go to go back to OpenStack. Clearly, we did not rehearse before this. Oh, I'm sorry, security.
Access security under project.
So, oh, you haven't said it. Oh, we didn't use it. So in the instructions, I don't know if we're going to do, we did reverse obviously, but in the instructions, when you follow the instructions, there's 3 neutron commands. And there they are, right there. So when he executed these 3 neutron commands, back to the, it creates these 3 rules in the security group. So this gives us access to the network. So then,
That's what they're considering being safe about it. Looking at those points. There's a little message up front that said something about.
well, when you open ports judicious.
Those are the ones.
Those are the standard ports for
SSH.
SSH and HTTP. Okay, so the next one is so there's an IP tables command that basically sets up the environment for Docker, and then we're going to use a Docker command.
Yeah. You can see, so Docker. So that's that image that we pulled right there.
So we're on the virtual machine. We're going to install Docker using the Docker command.
Yeah, that image is there. If you,
And that Docker image includes an MGX web server.
yep. So these are the 3 instances that we have running in Docker containers that we saw also in the dashboard.
then you switch to the,
and save that into a glance image. That's a command.
so then, so let's go to, so the way I envision this demo is there wouldn't be anything in the glance display, but there is now. So go back to OpenStack. Go to images. And you can see that the image has been imported. The LARPS ATHTTP, the Docker image, is the Docker, effectively a virtual machine with a container, right? It's been imported and it's now ready to be deployed. In OpenStack. So then we go to so actually, images. You want to spawn an image? Good. Yeah. So, we've already spawned the third image. Okay, so we've already spawned our third image, instance. I'm sorry, instance. And yeah, there's that one. So the trick that may not be clear is notice how each one of these comes up on a different IP address. This IP address maps to a port number, which is basically this one would be localhost 8885. This one would be localhost 8884, and this one would be localhost 8883. Yeah, congratulations.
That was that one. So if we go to 5, which is the new one that we just spin out.
And where is that map on the Vagrant file?
Yep. So
Vagrant doing that?
Vagrant sets it up.
Vagrant allows you to see it on your local machine. So the fact that we can go into our own web browser and see it on this port was from that port forwarding that we did down here. So we forwarded a few different ports, and if we wanted to spin up more instances, we could.
Yes.
If you wanted a 6, you'd have to add that every provision or something?
Not re-provision. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Which is easy to do.
Vagrant provision. Yeah, that works well. Yeah.
The commands to set up the Docker environment, are those part of the Vagrant file or is it?
No, they're run in the terminal to download the Docker file, and then we use OpenStack commands to upload them as an image.
But you can't, you have word, is it possible to orchestrate all of that?
Yes.
One Vagrant has a good whole dev stack environment up and running.
Yeah, you can hit up, and then all of a sudden you have whatever the exact environment. You just run that in provisioning stuff. So all those commands that we were doing in here, that could just be a part of the provision.
All that kind of stuff. So we have the Vagrant file.
The Vagrant file is fairly cool, very robust for scripting.
Essentially, what we want it to be is whatever you do in production. So obviously, this is something that if you wanted beautiful infrastructure, you would provision that in whatever build phase so that you can just deploy that artifact. We want the same thing for Vagrant so that we're developing off of exactly what you would be putting into production.
There's sort of one step removed, right? Because you're, right, Vagrant SSH, and SSH is the VirtualBox file, which is running Docker. But if I, if I started Docker, I start up multiple SSH into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which hypervisor is Nova using in DevStack?
So if I built a Vagrant file that builds this environment here, and then I want a production environment that looks just like it, except it's on my, actual big server instead of on the virtual box, what do I have to do to take that Vagrant file and apply it?
This is actually why I invited John here, actually, because I didn't know the answer.
Yeah. Remember back into the slides where there was all the different projects. That was actually the second project, open source project that was created, which is Packer, which is used to package images. same as Vagrant, it has all the different provisioners that you want to use, all the different providers that you might want to work with. And what you do is rather than doing that provisioning in the Vagrant step, you actually move that into Packer. And so what you do is you have all of the provisioning in one provisioning block, and you specify different builders. So a builder might be AWS, a builder might be Google Cloud, a builder might be OpenStack, or whatever you're trying to create on. And then in the post processor, you can spit out different images. So I want an AMI, and then I also want a Vagrant box. So every time I run that Packer build, which similar to Vagrant, it's a simple command, Packer build. And so what that does is it looks at the template and reads in all that information, just like Vagrant did provisioning. It provisions on the host, and then essentially creates that AMI and also that Vagrant box, which can be stored in Atlas. And so anytime, let's say you are you're working on your application, you push your code up to a repository that kicks off a Packer build, because once you pass your circle test or whatever CI tool you're using, that kicks off a new Packer build, which updates all of those images. So you have that golden image concept. You also have a golden Vagrant box concept. So your devs are going to pull down that Vagrant box, and they're still working off that latest version that mimics production. So that all happens in Packer. You would move the provisioning and configuration to Packer.
Okay, so I need to install Vagrant and Packer and Atlas.
Atlas you won't install. That's just where you can host it. You don't have to. If you wanted the production environment, yes, you would want Packer as
if
well.
I want my developers to develop something and then deploy it.
Yeah. So each piece of what I was mentioning earlier is that each piece aids in your application development to deployment and delivery. And so on top of that, we recommend that you use Terraform to do the deployment. That's a whole other subject and how you do it. You don't have to use any of them. You can use each piece if you just want. A lot of people just use Vagrant for development, and they already have their own deployment processes. But if you want to leverage the power of kind of what HashiCorp has envisioned for how the best way to deploy your infrastructure, each of those knocks out a different part of that pipeline.
Okay, so I can't just use Vagrant to go deploy it on the production system.
No, you would want to do that.
Okay.
I have one question on the Vagrant file.
Yep.
So basically, like it brings up a virtual machine. So basically, at the bottom you have the virtual machine properties, right? Like CPU and memory. Right? So what are those shell scripts? The C console.sh file system. Is it going to run a set of shell scripts once it brings up the VR?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so that's what it would provision on top of it. So if I were to remove this, then we wouldn't have, or I guess this line, Nginx wouldn't be installed.
But where are these scripts located? Is it on the image itself?
Right. So this is the directory. So my Vagrant file is this guy. So it's actually locally just referenced. The scripts right here. So it's all of those files that are in there.
So it's going to kind of SSH once the VM comes up, these scripts to the VM.
So yeah, it does the shared folders via rsync. So anything that you change locally gets changed on the virtual machine, and when you run that in the virtual machine, it has the most up-to-date version. So I can just rerun the scripts.
It's like a bootstrap.
So you can see that's that whole file structure here that's on my virtual machine that I'm SSH. Yeah. Right.
I haven't looked at Vagrant for a while, so between Vagrant and Packer, all the provisioning and stuff, is it all pretty much the same now?
Very similar. Packer has just recently been getting a lot of work done with a lot of the different open source projects that HashiCorp has been focusing on, and the recent release of all and some of the other stuff. The past year it hasn't gotten as much love as you might want, so we're actually going back triaging and really building out a lot of the bugs and issues that are associated.
But the goal is a lot of the config, at least the config that applies to both, should be pretty much the same regardless of what you use.
Similar to Terraform too, the whole core of it is you can also configure in Terraform at runtime using the same provision. provisioners, we don't necessarily recommend it, and that the more configuring you do at build time, the less chance you have of being a bad node. You're also taking 45 minutes as you're deploying to wait for Ansible to go through all the scripts. You can do that at build time. It can error if you don't care, because you can just run it again. If it's production's down and it's 3 in the morning and you're waiting for a host to come help you and the script keeps failing, it's a little bit scarier. So that's the whole build time configuration concept, is try and do all that before you're in the dire situation of just needing something out there. And with Terraform and the immutable infrastructure concept, you have that version. So similar to how version control, what that did for application development. I mean, think about if you're developing right now, would there ever be a time that you check or build code without checking it in? Like, likely not. And so what, you check it into Git or whatever, what our concept is and idea is infrastructure as code. When you have these configuration files with Packer that shows all your provisioning, anytime you change anything, you're not going into production and SSHing into the machine and updating a package just because you might have 100 of those. You're not going to SSH into 100 machines, which I kind of brought on the configuration management tools to orchestrate a lot of that. But if you do that in a codified way, where every change is documented in version, what you can do is in Terraform, just drop a backup version if you deploy a bad environment. And so with your infrastructure, you're constantly replacing the resources. So anytime I change anything, it brings up a new one, tears down the old one, and you can do redeploys or whatever you want to start shifting your traffic over there. But there's a lot less risk involved, and if something does go awry, it's very easy to fall back to a previous state just by changing one thing, check that file in, you have a version history of everything. So I mentioned Atlas before, and that kind of, you think about it like a remote repository for your infrastructure code. So you can go back and see all your different infrastructure builds throughout time and say, okay, what Git SHA was the problem or was the reason that I'm down right now? You have auditability, versionability, and you can collaborate on it, which you really couldn't before. There'd always be an operator going in and kind of figuring it out. He realizes the state of the world, but if you bring someone new on, or he leaves, or run over by a bus situation, you're kind of in a scary situation where there's no versioning. There's nowhere the whole idea of what your infrastructure looks like. It's just not out there. And so that's the Terraform piece of the tool set that allows you to get that, and that it has a graph concept and all your different resources interact with each other. So anytime you change something, you can see all the way down the line how it affects anything. So when you do your plan, you can say, all right, before I change anything, I want to see what's affected. Oh, I had no idea that service was going to be affected too. Like, let's rethink this. And so that's what the kind of infrastructure as code allows you to get. The concept behind Terraform is that whole graph. I'm probably getting away from the Vagrant stack part of that, but any other questions?
So how much of this did you have to build in the demo? Did the Vagrant file just kind of, you download the example from the website and it's got all the pieces?
Yeah, so everything will be in that repository. And I don't know how we can email this out to you guys.
We'll put it in the chat for the next meeting.
Okay, so yeah, everything is in here. Everything that I did is within there. This is the Vagrant file that provision everything. So you guys should be able to, just in these 3 steps, you should be able to get exactly what I have right there. And then with that, being that I don't really know what I'm doing with DevStack or OpenStack, so it's likely not the greatest repository regardless of how it's configured, but you guys, it's more or less a working example of you guys can take and configure it.
One question I'd like to ask is, what are some of the gotchas we want when we go through this the script? What are some of the things that you watch out?
One thing was we were trying to configure floating point IPs, so there's some configuration, some network configuration that when configuring a floating floating IP with an instance. I'm not sure what the issue was. We curl into it or turn it into an web page, but I think there's some piece in the Vagrant file configuration. I was actually playing around with it in this one. Might be just setting up that private or public network so you can actually see whatever IP you associate with that. That was one. Docker. Sometimes you can't pull images. You just gotta try it again. It's just, I don't know what the Docker Hub situation is, which is sometimes it'll say that it can't connect to the website or if you don't have internet connectivity. Same with provisioning. You need internet connectivity to provision everything. Otherwise, you might have a bad time when you're trying to install those packages. And with Docker too, because it's reaching out to that repository and pulling it in, you need internet connectivity and also the hope that you can pull the image just fine. Normally, 98% of the time it works for me, but sometimes that would be an issue. So support at hashicorp.com. Anything Vagrant related, anything Hashi related, any questions you guys might have, there's a Vagrant mailing list. As well as if you guys are going through the docs and something's confusing or it's not explained very well, again, it's open source, just throw the issue out there. Check out some of the other issues. Someone probably already caught it and you can just look into that. So we're very open to being an open source company. So email, we're very responsive in our support emails, and all we really want is kind of my job as a solutions engineer is helping the community use our tools better, specific to your setup. So obviously you don't know all of the different infrastructures out there, so it's a good learning opportunity for you as well. But yeah, definitely email or check out GitHub repo or mailing list, IRC emails.
How much disk do I need to run the demo?
What's up?
How much disk do I need to run the demo?
That's configured too. I can't remember off the top of my head how much it is. Probably the box is like a gig.
Okay.
And then you can actually configure how much memory Vagrant uses
Oh, yeah.
in the Vagrant
Okay.
file. But that's
A few gig then.
yeah.
Can you talk about the use of HashiCorp, just, might go in a box, packer and post it onto HashiCorp sites and how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So let me hop over to where a lot of the boxes are hosted. So if you sign up with Atlas, you have access to all the tools and what Atlas offers, but one big one is the Vagrant box community. So likely a lot of people have already done what you're looking to do, being that it's been around for a while and they've already tried to automate whatever you might be trying to automate. If they haven't, it's a good place for you to help support the community. But what you can do is upload your own box. So in that Packer post processor, you would use an Atlas one. What that does is when it finishes provisioning, it sends that up into Atlas, which is then stored here. So here's some of the HashiCorp boxes. Oh. And so, yeah, what that does is you can keep it private to yourself or your organization. It's just, there's sensitive stuff on there. Also, there's base boxes that you want to start with. So whether that's just or whatever you might need, there's a lot of stuff already out there. So I actually didn't look, but there probably already a DevStack situation going on. But yeah, within Atlas, you go into the Vagrant section, you can check out boxes. Here, discover Vagrant boxes. You can search for different pieces. So it shows the most popular downloads that some of these boxes get for people. It has all different types of infrastructure that people use in the past within the last 5 years. That's your question. Any other questions?
It's also easy to create a
Yep. Yeah, so yeah, with, there's documentation, as well in Packard, which you can do that. And what's nice about building in Packard is that if you decide you want to do it in your production environment, all it is adding another builder. And so it's not changing how you provisioned it at all. It's just changing where it's gonna, what it's gonna provision that with. So all of a sudden you have AWS. Now I want DigitalOcean. Okay, here's another small chunk of code. You have that exact same stack on these different providers for you. Any other questions? Cool. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me.
If you have any ideas for the next session, let me know, either now or in the chat.
So,